Sometimes the reason your life hasn't changed yet is because you're being asked to become someone who can carry what you've been asking for. Not someone louder, not someone flashier, but someone quieter, deeper, ready. Success, real success, doesn't arrive in a flurry of noise and applause. It arrives like the morning light, unnoticed at first, until suddenly everything is illuminated. You see, the world rewards speed, but life rewards readiness. And that's a very different kind of race. There is a silence beneath all your striving, a quiet place within you where the real work happens. Not the work people see, not the performances, the updates, the achievements on display, but the inner work, the kind that matures your character while no one's watching, the kind that sharpens your thoughts in the middle of doubt, the kind that teaches you to keep showing up, even when the results are still invisible. Are you willing to be unseen for a while? Are you willing to become steady before you become seen? The world teaches urgency. Life teaches timing. And timing can't be rushed. You don't pull the sun up with your hands. You wait. You grow. You learn to be still, not stagnant, but still until the next right door opens and you're finally someone who can walk through it without falling apart. You don't need to chase what is already making its way to you. You just need to become the version of yourself who is capable of receiving it. The question is, who are you becoming when no one is looking? Because when success finally arrives, if it finds you unprepared, it will pass you by like wind through an open hand. There's a kind of patience that isn't weakness. It's power under control. It's not about waiting with frustration. It's about waiting with purpose. About turning this season of not yet into a classroom, not a punishment. Because what you do while you wait is what determines who you'll be when it's time. Sometimes you are not being delayed, you are being shaped. So prepare your mind, feed it truth, train it to focus, guard it from noise. Give it the nourishment of stillness, the fuel of intention, the clarity of purpose. Because success, true lasting success, doesn't respond to urgency, it responds to alignment. And alignment doesn't happen in a rush. It happens in the quiet work, the slow, steady chiseling of your inner world, until it matches the outer life you're asking for. Don't fear the slowness. Don't despise the process. You are not behind. You are becoming. And success, it isn't running from you. It's waiting patiently for the moment you're finally ready to hold it. We live in a world obsessed with speed. The faster you respond, the more productive you are. The sooner you arrive, the more successful you seem. But life doesn't always move to that tempo. It isn't a sprint, nor a race measured in deadlines or dopamine hits. Life, in its truest form, rewards not the hurried, but the ready. Have you ever seen a tree grow? It doesn't rush toward the sky. It waits for the right season. It digs deep before it reaches high. No applause, no audience, no urgency, just quiet preparation. Inch by inch, ring by ring, until one day the tree is tall enough to hold birds, strong enough to weather storms, and rooted enough not to fall when the wind changes. The same is true for people. The future doesn't unfold in response to how fast we want it to arrive. It unfolds for those who have done the internal work, those who have laid the groundwork while no one was watching. And that preparation is invisible, slow, and often lonely. But it is never wasted. Ask yourself, are you chasing speed or are you building strength? It's easy to confuse activity with progress, to feel like momentum is everything. But have you ever noticed how the most enduring lives, the ones we look up to, often have one thing in common? They are deeply prepared in character, in clarity, in endurance, in humility. Because when the storm comes, and it always does, it isn't the fastest who last. It's the most grounded. When the opportunity knocks, it isn't the loudest to answer. It's the most ready. The world may reward immediacy, but life, in the long run, belongs to those who were willing to wait, to learn, and to build something that can last. You can see this truth in every field. The athletes who win at the highest level aren't just fast. They are disciplined. They've rehearsed the same movements 1,000 times in silence. The best writers don't type the quickest. They sit with their thoughts the longest. The best leaders aren't always the most charismatic, They're the most rooted in values, patience, and vision. Because preparation creates depth, and depth outlasts speed. Speed gives you a head start, but preparation gives you staying power. What good is arriving early if you're not ready for what you'll find when you get there? There are many who reach the mountaintop quickly, only to realize they never built the muscles to stay there. Because climbing fast without wisdom is like flying without wings. Eventually you fall. But if you prepare your mind, your spirit, your craft, the mountaintop becomes not just a place you visit, it becomes a place you can stand. So slow down. Let the world race ahead if it must. Let others measure their lives in metrics and milestones. You focus on becoming ready. Read the books no one sees you reading. Train the mind no one applauds. Make peace with the quiet, the dull days, the nothing seems to be happening seasons. They are not empty. They are planting something in you, something sturdy, something worthy of the future you say you want. You don't need to be first. You need to be ready, because the future is not a prize for the fastest. It is a responsibility for the most prepared, and when that future comes, as it always does, it will not ask how fast you ran. It will ask, are you ready to carry what you asked for? Growth, the kind that truly transforms us, does not make headlines. It does not arrive with trumpets or trend on screens. It moves like a whisper in the soul, not a shout in the square. It happens in the quiet, when no one is looking, when the applause has faded, when you're left with just yourself and the slow work of becoming. We often think that if something doesn't happen publicly, it doesn't matter, that if others can't see our effort, it must not be worth making. But real growth isn't a performance. It's a process, deeply personal, often invisible. Think of a seed buried in soil. There is no light, no camera, no audience. Just darkness, stillness, and the unseen miracle of becoming. Day by day, it breaks open from within, not because it's told to, but because it was meant to. That cracking open, it looks like breaking, but it is becoming. You are not so different. The seasons when you feel unseen, those are not your punishment. They may be your roots taking hold. Have you noticed how much of your growth happened when you were struggling quietly, when you were asking questions no one could answer for you, when you were wrestling with doubt, confusion, or heartbreak, and still choosing, somehow, to get up anyway? That's the real transformation. That's where strength is born. In the silence of trying again. The spotlight is seductive. It promises validation, but it is not where depth is built. In fact, the spotlight often reveals what hasn't been grown in the dark. If we're not careful, we'll spend so much time chasing visibility that we forget to become someone worth seeing. Because it's possible to be seen and still be shallow. It's possible to be praised and still be hollow. But it is not possible to grow deeply without passing through some kind of silence. Ask yourself, where am I being asked to grow when no one is watching? It might be in the way you respond to disappointment. It might be in how you handle waiting. It might be in your ability to stay kind, even when you're tired. It might be in your willingness to keep showing up, even when nothing seems to change. These things are not small. They are the quiet building blocks of character, and character is what remains when everything else is stripped away. The truth is, if your identity is built in silence, no spotlight can shake it. But if your identity is built for the spotlight, you will need it just to feel real. So lean into the quiet places of your life, the early mornings, the long walks, the unnoticed effort, the conversations where you listen more than you speak. These are your growing grounds. And you may not feel it now, but the roots you are planting in silence are creating a life that can hold more purpose, more peace, more strength. And when the spotlight does come, you won't need it. You'll already know who you are. Growth is not loud. It does not compete. It does not announce itself. But one day you'll look back and realize the moments that seemed empty were actually full. The times you felt alone were where your soul became whole. And the silence that once felt like absence was really an invitation to become.
There's a certain ache that comes with waiting. A quiet restlessness that sits just beneath the surface. You try to stay patient. You try to stay hopeful. But somewhere deep inside a question echoes, Why is it taking so long? You look around and see others moving forward, achieving, arriving, and you wonder if life has forgotten you. You wonder if maybe you missed your moment, or worse, if you were never meant to have one at all. But what if the wait isn't a punishment? What if it's preparation in disguise? Nature never rushes. A flower does not bloom because you shout at it. A wave does not crash because you asked it to. And yet everything arrives in its time, fully formed, fully ready. The same may be true of you. You see, life has its own timing, and often that timing includes a stretch of space between the desire and the delivery, between the dream and the door. We call that space waiting, and it often feels unbearable. But hidden within it is something sacred. Waiting stretches us, not in ways that feel pleasant, but in ways that make us capable. Capable of holding what we long for, because the truth is, what you want most may require a version of you that doesn't exist yet, and the only way to become that version is through the refining work of delay. Think of the potter's hands shaping clay, gently, patiently applying pressure and water and time. The clay may want to be a vase, but first it must be shaped. It must be put in the fire, and then it must wait. Why? Because cooling is just as important as shaping. Otherwise, it cracks. You may feel like you're ready for what you've asked for, but the wait is a quiet wisdom saying, not yet. Not because you don't deserve it, but because you're still becoming the person who can carry it without breaking. We often assume that the longer it takes, the further we're falling behind. But time doesn't always move in straight lines. Sometimes the deepest leaps forward begin with stillness. Ask yourself, what is this season asking me to prepare for? Maybe it's not about what you're waiting for. Maybe it's about who you're becoming while you wait. Are you learning patience, not just as endurance, but as peace? Are you refining your thinking, sharpening your habits, deepening your humility? Are you letting go of outcomes and focusing instead on becoming? Because when you do, something shifts. You stop seeing waiting as wasted time and start seeing it as fertile ground. You begin to notice that your roots are growing, that your vision is clearing, that you are stronger than you were before. And then, one day, what you were waiting for arrives, quietly perhaps, or suddenly, but either way, you are ready, not just to receive it, but to hold it. That's the gift of preparation. It turns the ache of delay into the strength of capacity. So if you're in a season of waiting, don't rush out of it. Don't wish it away too soon. Let it do its work. Let it teach you, stretch you, deepen you, and trust that the very thing you think is holding you back may be the thing setting you up. Because the wait is not the wall. It is the workshop, not the end, but the edge of something beginning. And it's not punishing you. It's preparing you for something you may not yet be able to imagine, but will one day be grateful you were made ready to receive. We all have goals. Some are whispered in the quiet of night. Others are written on whiteboards, spoken aloud, etched in journal. They give us a sense of purpose, a direction. They whisper promises of change, of breakthrough, of a life more aligned with who we hope to become. But goals alone don't carry us. It's a hard truth, but a necessary one. You don't rise to the level of your goal. You fall to the level of your preparation. And if you're not prepared, the dream you long for can become the weight you buckle under. We've been told to dream big, and we should. But dreaming is only half the equation. The other half happens when no one is watching. In early morning, in difficult choices, in the slow, steady grind of showing up when it's easier to stay comfortable. Because here's what most don't see. Ambition without preparation is like aiming for the summit with no gear, no training, and no map. It's not inspiring, it's dangerous. Wanting to be strong doesn't make you strong. Wanting to be wise doesn't make you wise. Wanting success doesn't make you ready for it. What makes you ready is the work. The small, invisible, unglamorous habits, the willingness to do what is hard without needing praise, the decision to train for a moment long before the moment ever arrives. You don't become a great speaker on the stage. You become one in quiet hours of reflection and relentless practice. You don't become financially free with a single paycheck. You become free by understanding, discipline, restraint. You don't become a leader when others start following you. You become one when you learn to follow your own principles, especially when it costs you something. Goals set your direction. Preparation sets your foundation. And without a strong foundation, what you build will not last. So ask yourself, what level of preparation have I actually done? Not the kind that looks good, not the performance, the real kind. Have I studied, practiced, rehearsed, built the strength to carry what I say I want? Have I trained my character, not just my talent? Have I learned to hold silence, discomfort, resistance, without quitting? Because in the moment of pressure, you will not rise to the occasion. You will sink to the level of your preparation. It happens every day, in conversations, in relationships, in decision-making, in business. When the pressure comes, we don't magically become our ideal selves. We become whatever we've practiced. That can be frightening, or it can be freeing, because it means your future is not a mystery. It is built in the minutes you spend right now, today, laying a foundation no one else can see. And over time, that preparation becomes your confidence. Not because you know everything will go perfectly, but because you've already walked through enough fire to know you can stand. So stop waiting for the moment to come before you begin. Begin now. Prepare not just for the win, but for the weight of it. Prepare for the silence, the setbacks, the solitude. Because when the moment arrives, when the dream finally knocks, it will not be asking how big your goals were. It will be asking, are you someone who can carry this? There's a subtle illusion many of us carry, that life will give us what we want, if we can just catch the right moment. We wait for the market to shift, for the perfect opportunity to appear, for someone to notice us, for the right time, and somewhere in that waiting, we start believing that success is about timing, that those who make it simply moved quicker, guessed better, or got lucky. But real success is never just about catching the world at the right moment. It's about aligning yourself deeply, truthfully, and inwardly, so that when the moment does arrive, you don't have to chase it. You're ready to meet it. The world is always moving, always changing. You can't time it. You can't outsmart it. Trying to sync your life to the rhythms of external forces is like trying to hold the tide with your hands. The waves come when they come. So instead of trying to control the sea, you learn to build a stronger boat. That's alignment. Alignment means asking harder questions. What do I really value? What kind of life am I becoming available for? It means adjusting your internal compass, your beliefs, your focus, your habits, so that the version of you walking through the world is pointed in the direction of your highest integrity, not just your highest income. You can chase timing your entire life and never find peace. But if you really align with who you are meant to be, you don't need perfect timing, because aligned people don't rely on luck. They are steady in chaos. They're ready before the opportunity. They don't flinch when things don't go as planned, because their direction comes from within, not from trends, or noise, or fear. Ask yourself gently, am I trying to time the world, or am I aligning with who I want to become? It's easy to look outward and try to match your pace to everyone else's, but alignment is not about comparison, it's about congruence. Is your behavior in line with your values? Is your work a reflection of your purpose, or a performance for approval? Is your life arranged to impress others, or to fulfill something deeper inside you? When you're aligned, time no longer feels like a threat. You stop panicking when things take longer. You stop rushing into opportunities that aren't right just because they came early. You stop needing everything to make sense right away, because you're not waiting on the world to give you permission. You're giving it to yourself. That's the shift. That's the quiet revolution inside. You become less interested in catching your big break, and more committed to becoming someone who doesn't need one. You stop trying to force life into your timeline, and begin listening for the rhythm of your own. And when those aligned moments do come, and they always do, they feel less like a reward and more like recognition. They meet you as an equal, not because the world finally changed, but because you did. Success that isn't aligned is fragile. Success that is aligned is sustainable, because it's not built on timing, it's built on truth. So stop chasing the clock. Start checking your compass, because the goal isn't to arrive first, it's to arrive whole. There is a quiet rhythm to life that cannot be hurried, and when we learn to move with it, instead of against it, something remarkable happens. Effort becomes lighter, timing becomes clearer, and doors begin to open with less noise and more grace. But none of that can happen until the mind is ready, because life doesn't just respond to effort. It responds to alignment, to clarity, to intention, to the quiet, unseen readiness of a mind that's been prepared to receive what it's been asking for. So many people spend their lives trying to push things into place, pushing for success, for relationships, for meaning, and while effort has its place, force often comes from fear. The fear that if we don't grip tighter, it will all slip away. But force rarely brings peace. It creates resistance, strain, missteps. The mind, when unready, turns every hill into a mountain. But when the mind is ready, truly ready, life stops feeling like a fight. Have you ever noticed how certain things only started working after you stopped trying so hard to control them? Maybe it was the conversation that flowed better once you let go of the script. Maybe it was the opportunity that showed up once you stopped chasing and started preparing. Maybe it was the peace that came not from fixing everything, but from finally understanding yourself. That's what readiness feels like. Not passive, not idle, but rooted, aligned, clear. You begin to see that there is a difference between movement and momentum, that the most powerful changes often don't come from force, but from permission, and that permission doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within, because when your mind is prepared, not crammed full of noise, but quietly focused, life doesn't need to be pushed. It unfolds, it reveals its next step, like a trail emerging from the mist. You don't need to wrestle with it, you just need to notice. Readiness isn't something you perform, it's something you become. And it's built through stillness, through reflection, through sitting with the hard questions long enough for them to soften and guide you. Who am I becoming? What truly matters to me? Where have I been trying to force what needs to flow? These are not quick answers, but they are the beginning of a mind that is no longer bracing against life, but working with it. And when your mind is ready, you begin to trust life more, not because everything becomes easy, but because you're no longer resisting the lessons. You're receiving them, you're walking with them, you're becoming stronger not by pushing harder, but by preparing deeper. Let go of the illusion that force creates fulfillment. Let go of the idea that if it hasn't happened yet, it never will. Maybe the reason it hasn't arrived is because your mind is still making space for it. So instead of chasing, prepare. Instead of forcing, align. Instead of demanding. Because when the mind is finally clear, when your thoughts, habits, and intentions begin to harmonize, the pieces that once felt scattered begin to fall quietly into place. Not because you fought harder, but because you were ready. And readiness, unlike pressure, always invites peace.